Like in the Navy, you can either go two different ways, like the big carrier type deployments, or you can do small, what they call small boys, or like small ships, which used to be frigates, and I was on frigates, but there's also destroyers, cruisers. That's in the U.S. Navy. All um, it's also decom now, but the HMS Lancaster was a British frigate, so there's like the same kind of like model
Okay.
ship. They have a small flight deck, usually one or two aircraft, and they'll have what's called a detachment. So, like, the squadron will be at home, and there'll be like 40, 50 pilots in a squadron, an American helicopter squadron, and a bunch of air crewmen and then maintainers and stuff. And, like, on a typical carrier deployment, the whole squadron goes on the carrier. So they'll
Mm.
go out, they'll bring like 5 or 6 aircraft, they'll bring all their maintainers, all their pilots,
Huh.
everybody will go to the carrier. On a detachment squadron, they'll send out these little detachments. So at any given time on a squadron, half the squadron will be home training, the other half will be on 5 or 6 different deployments. And it's kind of common in a detachment squadron, like I was in, HSL 49, the Scorpions, that you wouldn't even know people. So, you'd be in the squadron for years, and there'd be people that have also been in the squadron for years, but you were always on different cycles and you never actually met each other. And that happened quite often. So you'd go out with your small little group of 6 pilots. It would be 2 senior pilots, 1 OIC, and then 3 junior pilots, who would be training to become like aircraft commanders and mission commanders for future deployments. Um, and then we'd have 3 air crewmen that we'd bring, and then we'd have about 20 maintainers and like a senior chief or something running the maintainers. And then for us in our mission, we had like Coast Guard, special operations detachment. But for the most part, it's just that, and you're kind of set apart from the ship. So the ship, has all of its own, things, but then we report to the ship, and we have our own chain of command. We have our own, we have what's called an OIC, or an officer in charge of the air detachment, and they're where our chain of command ends, and then they talk back home to our
Mm.
squadron CO back home, and we're just kind of along for the ride on the ship. Clearly, like, we're respectful of the captain of the ship and everything like that, but they don't really have much jurisdiction over us. And like, for instance, when we take off from the ship, there's always a pilot who takes command of the flight deck, and we kind of have control of the ship, in a sense. Like, the ship can't turn or move or do anything when we have control of the flight deck. Um,
Mm.
so there's a lot of inner workings that are different, and there's a lot of like bad blood. Like, like in the Navy, Navy pilots wear brown leather. So, like, we wear brown leather shoes, we wear brown leather jackets, and that's like a carryover from the World War II days.
Mm.
But the rest of the Navy wears black leather. So they have black leather shoes, black nylon jackets, and it just created this difference in culture. They call it the brown shoe Navy versus the black shoe Navy. And like, in all
Huh.
reality, we all get along. But there is some resentment, because when we show up to the ship, like, we have our scheduled, rotations. So we'll do 16 hours awake, 8 hours of sleep, because we need crew rest. Whereas the ship will do sometimes, 12 to 18 hours, sometimes even 24-hour shifts I've seen. Um, but we have mandatory like crew rest cycles. So, we'll split into 3 different crews, and then each crew will have an 8-hour wake window, or excuse me, each crew will have an 8-hour window where they're allotted to fly, and then an
Right.
8-hour window where they're allotted to support the crew that's flying, and then an 8-hour window to sleep. So if you work that out, you really only get like 2 meals a day. You don't get to, sit for all 3 meals that everybody else has. So you're already eating less food.
Mm.
And there's the resentment comes when, like, we go into port, or we go, the ship has some kind of like all hands on deck kind of like, training, or little things that nobody wants to do, cleaning the ship and stuff like that. Our job is to maintain our aircraft. We're also studying while we're there. So, like, as a junior pilot, uh, in that 8 hours that you're not flying, that you're supporting the flying crew, not only are we in combat at the flight deck, in maintenance, but we're also studying for about 3 hours a day. And that's, while we're deployed doing missions and stuff. So we just have a different life than they do. And yeah, so it creates a little bit of tension, at times. um, and you just have to figure out kind of how to navigate that. Um,
Hmm.
but uh, overall, I mean, life on a ship, at least on a small ship, is not really that glamorous. It's like um, I tell people it's kind of like camping in an RV that's not a nice RV.